In a quiet valley, nestled between rolling green hills and a gentle river, there once was a town called Havenwood. It was a place of serene prosperity, where the baker's bread was always warm, the blacksmith's hammer rang with a cheerful rhythm, and the laughter of children was the town's most treasured music. Havenwood was a portrait of contentment, a community that had, for generations, known nothing but peace and plenty. But peace is a fragile thing, and the foundations of Havenwood were about to be shaken by a tide of shadow and squeal. It began subtly, a flicker of movement in the corner of an eye, a rustle in the thatch of a roof. Then it became a torrent. The rats came. These were no ordinary vermin, no simple field mice seeking shelter. They were monstrous aberrations, swollen to 3 times the size of a common rat, their fur matted and coarse, 4 times as long as it should be. Their eyes glinted with a malevolent intelligence, and their teeth were like rows of sharpened daggers. They carried with them an insatiable hunger, a gnawing void that threatened to consume Havenwood itself. The plague descended upon the town with breathtaking speed. The rats were an army of gluttony. They swarmed the granaries, devouring in a night what was meant to feed families for a month. They scurried through pantries, tainting every morsel of food. They lapped at the town's water supply, leaving it fouled and undrinkable. The once happy streets became the rats' domain. Children who had once played tag and hopscotch under the sun were now confined to their homes, their laughter replaced by fearful silence as the grotesque creatures scuttled across the cobblestones. In desperation, the town council unleashed its feline defenders. Cats, sleek and proud, were sent to reclaim the streets. But they returned with their tails between their legs, or didn't return at all. These rats were too large, too ferocious. The hunters had become the hunted. A profound despair settled over Havenwood. Whispers turned to serious discussions of abandoning their homes, of leaving everything behind to escape the relentless, chittering horror. It seemed their only option. Then, on a day when the sky was a flat, hopeless gray, a figure appeared on the road leading into town. He was a stranger, a musician, whose clothes were a stunning tapestry of crimson and gold, a stark, vibrant contrast to the gloom that had befallen Havenwood. As he walked, the very air seemed to hold its breath. Even the rats caused their feasting, their beady eyes fixed on the man who moved with such strange confidence. Who was this beacon of color in their world of gray? The piper made his way directly to the office of the town mayor, a portly and pragmatic man named Mayor Sterling. "Mr. Mayor," the piper said, his voice as clear and resonant as a bell, "I've heard of your infestation. I can solve your problem." Mayor Sterling, a man who believed in contracts and coin, not miracles and melodies, scoffed. "And how do you propose to do that? With a tune?" "All living things respond to music, Mayor," the piper replied calmly. "And I dare say I play the pipe 10 times better than any man alive. My music will be their shepherd, and I will lead them from your town." Ordinarily, Sterling would have had the man thrown out for such a preposterous claim. But the situation was far from ordinary. The gnawing of the rats was a constant reminder of his failure. "Talk is cheap," the mayor grumbled. "What proof do I have?" Without a word, the piper raised his simple wooden pipe to his lips and played a short, lilting melody. The notes danced through the air, and a moment later, a small sparrow flew in through the open window and landed gently on his shoulder, chirping in harmony. Mayor Sterling's eyebrows shot up. "Well, well," he conceded, a glint of avarice in his eyes. He saw not a miracle, but an opportunity. "You certainly have a gift. Of course, payment would only be rendered after the task is complete. What is your price?" "A small fee for restoring your entire town," the piper said with a faint smile. 1,000 gold pieces. The mayor choked on his own breath. 1,000 gold pieces! It was an astronomical sum, nearly his entire annual salary. But the alternative was the complete collapse of his town and his reputation with it. He quickly composed himself, his mind already spinning, searching for angles, for loopholes. "That is a significant amount of money," he said slowly, his voice laced with false sincerity. "But you are certain you can eliminate all of them? Every single rat?" "I am," said the piper. "To be perfectly clear," Sterling pressed, leaning forward, "you will get rid of all of them, not 99%, 100%, every last one. And for that, we will pay you 1,000 gold pieces. Is that our agreement?" "That sounds perfectly acceptable," the piper agreed. "Just so there are no misunderstandings," the mayor reiterated, a thin smile on his lips. 100% of the rats, correct?" "May I begin?" the piper asked, a hint of impatience in his tone. "By all means. The town is yours." The piper stepped back out into the main street and once again raised his pipe. But this time the music he played was different. It was a strange, hypnotic tune, a melody that seemed to bypass the ears and burrow directly into the mind. Instantly, a change swept through Havenwood. The gnawing, the fighting, the scurrying, it all ceased. From every cellar, every attic, and every sewer drain, the rats emerged, their eyes glazed over. They scurried towards the source of the music, forming a vast, writhing sea of fur around the piper. Then the melody shifted. It became a marching tune, and the chaotic mass of rats organized itself into a long, disciplined line. From their windows, the people of Havenwood watched, their fear slowly turning to awe. The piper began to walk, his crimson and gold coat a general's banner leading an army of vermin. He strode through every street and alley, and with every step, more rats joined the procession, a seemingly endless river of filth flowing behind him. The townsfolk wondered where he was taking them. If he simply led them out of town, surely they would return. But the piper's plan was more permanent. He led the grotesque parade straight towards the river that bordered the town. The water wasn't particularly deep, and the tall piper waded in without missing a note. The rats, however, were not so tall. Compelled by the irresistible music, they followed him blindly into the current. They couldn't swim. They could only follow the sound that held their will captive. One by one, they plunged into the water and were swept away, their hypnotic trance broken only by the cold finality of the river. The people of Havenwood erupted in cheers. They had their town back. But Mayor Sterling, watching from his window, did not cheer. He watched with a cold, calculating gaze as the last rat disappeared beneath the waves. 100% of them. The contract was fulfilled. That evening, Havenwood was reborn. The town celebrated with a grand festival. There was feasting and dancing, and the piper was hailed as a hero. He was given the finest food and drink, and the sound of joyous music, for the first time in months, filled the night air. The following morning, the piper returned to the mayor's office to collect his fee. "Ah, yes, about that," Mayor Sterling began, his expression a mask of feigned regret. "There appears to be a slight problem with our agreement. I stipulated quite clearly that you were to get rid of every last rat, 100% of them, and I'm afraid you failed to do so." With a theatrical flourish, the mayor opened a desk drawer and produced a small, ordinary rat in a cage. During the night, he had dispatched a trusted aide to a neighboring town with explicit instructions to bring back a single rat. This creature was nothing like the monsters that had plagued them. It was small, with normal fur and teeth. "That rat is not from Havenwood," the piper stated, his voice dangerously calm. "I kept my end of the bargain, but I am a reasonable man. Perhaps you can pay me 900 gold pieces instead of 1,000. He gave a short, mirthless laugh. "To think that one small rat just cost me 100 gold pieces." Mayor Sterling cleared his throat, enjoying his perceived victory. "I'm afraid you don't grasp the principles of business. The terms of the contract were explicit. You failed to meet them. Therefore, the contract is void. I cannot pay you." For a long, tense moment, the piper was silent. The mayor felt a flicker of fear. But then he reminded himself, this man was just a musician. He held no real power. And the mayor was certainly not a rat. "Are you absolutely certain this is the path you wish to take?" the piper asked, his eyes like chips of ice. "I will offer you 100 pieces," the mayor said quickly, trying to appear magnanimous, "as a gesture of goodwill, and a full sack of provisions for your journey." "Keep your charity," the piper interrupted, turning to leave. "I won't be needing it." As the piper walked out, Mayor Sterling felt a wave of relief and triumph. He had saved the town, and he had saved 1,000 gold pieces. He was a genius. But his self-congratulation was short-lived. A new melody began to drift through the window. The piper stood in the town square, his pipe to his lips, playing a tune utterly different from the one before. This music was not for rats. It was filled with the sound of laughter, of candy, and of secret promises. This time, it was the children who heard it. All across Havenwood, they stopped their games. Their toys fell from their hands. Their eyes took on the same glazed, enchanted look as the rats had. They ran from their homes and yards, drawn to the irresistible music. At first, the mayor thought it was a charming sight. But then, just as the rats had done, the children formed a neat, orderly line behind the piper. Every single child in Havenwood followed him. Every last one. The piper began to walk, leading the children out of town. The children's parents were indoors, resting after the previous night's festivities, blissfully unaware of the silent exodus. "Stop, stop," the mayor cried, rushing into the street. But his voice was lost, unheard by ears that could only hear the pipe. He grabbed at the children, pleading with them to go home, but they moved past him as if he were a ghost. They could only follow the piper. The mayor, old and terrified, tried to give chase, but he was quickly left behind. He retreated to his house, bolted the doors, and watched from behind a curtain, his heart pounding with a horror he had never imagined. The piper led the procession of children up into the hills, through the whispering woods, and finally to the foot of the great mountain that loomed over the valley. Here, the mayor thought, they must stop. The mountain was a sheer wall of rock. But as the piper played, a fissure appeared in the stone. A dark opening, like a mouth, yawned wide. The mountain opened like a door, and the piper walked inside. And, of course, the children followed him. One by one, the bright, joyful future of Havenwood disappeared into the cold, dark heart of the mountain. Later that day, the dreadful silence fell as parents discovered their children were gone. Panic turned to grief, and grief to a desperate search. But only 3 children ever returned. One boy, who had a lame leg, had been unable to keep up. One girl, who was blind, had lost her way in the forest. And a third girl, who was deaf, had been spared the music's call. "What happened?" the parents demanded, their faces streaked with tears. "He played such beautiful music," said the lame boy, "and everyone followed. I tried, but my leg wouldn't let me climb the hills fast enough." "I followed their footsteps into the forest," the blind girl whispered, "but when the path grew rough, I lost my way. I couldn't see where they went." The deaf girl spoke through her mother, who translated her frantic signs. "I didn't hear anything, but I saw all the other children dancing as they walked. I thought it was a strange game, so I followed to see. When we reached the mountain, it just opened up. They all went inside. After the last child stepped through, the mountain sealed itself shut again." "But why?" a mother sobbed. "He was so kind to us." "I heard him," the blind girl added, her voice trembling. "I was near the mayor's office. I heard the piper talking to the mayor. The mayor refused to pay him." That was all the parents needed to hear. A new music filled their hearts, a dark, terrible song of fury and vengeance. They marched to Mayor Sterling's house, their grief forged into a weapon. They did not knock. They did not ask for him to open the door. In their eyes, he was the last rat in Havenwood, a creature of greed who had traded their children for gold. And so, the town of Havenwood was forever changed. It became a place of echoes and memories where no music was played for 100 years. The laughter of children was a ghost that haunted its silent streets. There had once been a mayor in the town, too, but one day he simply vanished. No one ever spoke of him again. He was just a promise broker, a debt unpaid, a lesson learned far, far too late.